May is National Preservation Month, so we're joined again by celebrity historian Raffi to share more about Americana and historic preservation. From George Washington to here locally in Arkansas. Thanks for joining us again, Raffi. Great to see you.
Of course,
Yes,
I even brought
What did you bring?
master's degree in historic preservation.
Just to make sure that
Fitting
we
for
know.
the month, right? The
Absolutely.
diplomacy just sits in a tube.
Yes. Well,
Nice.
what is historic preservation, Raffi?
We think of historic preservation as putting something, preserved in the past, but really I think it's about the future because we decide what we're going to recognize and protect for the future. And it's not always behind a red rope or in a museum. It's often in your district. It's a private home or a commercial building that a business is in or something like that, right? And sometimes it means that we're recognizing something that's difficult in the past, and sometimes it means we're celebrating something. But my favorite aspect to focus on is the National Park Service because I used to work for the National Park Service
Yeah.
at different sites. We have a couple of them here nearby. They're not just Yellowstone and Yosemite, but here nearby, for example, we have the Pea Ridge. There's me working at Gettysburg, the battlefield.
Yeah.
We have a Civil War site right here nearby, Pea Ridge, for example.
Sure, yeah.
Possibly the most important battlefield west of the Mississippi because it's what helped Missouri stay in the Union. We also have Fort Smith, of course, which is not only the third largest town in Arkansas, but also has a National Park Service site there that interprets the frontier in Arkansas, even the Trail of Tears. So there's all kinds of things the National Park Service does, even besides national parks. It has grant programs, for example. It has a training and research center. It even has a preservation technology center. So
Wow.
preservation and technology go together. And a great example of that is what I brought in right here.
Yeah, this
Because
papyrus?
This is papyrus that we have here in our hands from Egypt. My mom is from Egypt.
Wow.
And I was just hanging out at the Historical Society
That's
in the
amazing.
background.
Yeah.
Guess who they had? Someone who has a degree in art history and chemistry. Do you think that's helpful in some preserving something
Probably,
like this?
absolutely.
So that's why there is something like the Preservation Technology Center in which they're working with technology to preserve things like this. That's the kind of thing we're talking about that the National Park Service does, even provides grants for private citizens to work.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
This might be a bit of an odd question, but did historic preservation exist in historic times?
It did, especially in the early part of the 19th century, shortly after George Washington, because his home was at risk. Mount Vernon was at risk, and so was John Hancock's home. You know John Hancock, the guy who wrote the big
Sure, of
signature
course.
on the
Yeah.
Declaration of Independence? Well, they were both at risk. Mount Vernon, as we know, got protected with the Mount Vernon Ladies Association, one of the biggest success stories of preservation early on. But John Hancock's home did not. It was torn down, and townhouses went up. And this created this uproar in the country in the 19th century, saying, what kind of country are we? What does this say about our values? Are we going to value
Yeah.
commercial real estate, or are we going to value the heroes of our past? There was this actual debate, believe it or not. So I would say that they did exist even in historic times, the stuff that we look back on. A couple other quick examples that are really interesting is when people moved from the East Coast to the Midwest and from the European descent, and they found various mounds from Native American civilizations.
Sure.
They referred to that as ancient America, so they could use that to compete with Europe to show we have a past as well. So they did actually look to the past to try to create a certain image. Even if you look at some architecture, it tries to revive colonial architecture, and that was a story of trying to tell us how far we've come across those period of time. So preservation's been used in different ways.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
Raffi, thanks for filling us in. And the month is celebrated all month long, is that right?
It is
During the month
celebrated
of May.
all month long, and there are a couple of local Arkansas things you can look at. Of course, you can go to Old State House. That's one of the oldest stories here. You
Sure.
can check out Preservation Arkansas, which is a nonprofit, and you can check out the Arkansas Historic Preservation Program, which is through the state program, provides grants as well for local preservation efforts for y'all to check out.
That's awesome. Raffi, thanks for all that details. And hang out with us for just a second. We're going to jump into some hot topics.